So we're going to use the method of completing the square to turn the expression into a perfect square trinomial. So given the equation of a circle, rewrite in standard form x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 10y plus 25 equals 0, and then find the center and radius. So the equation right now is in general form, and you can't find the center and the radius from that form. What we need to do is rewrite it into standard form, and to do that we're going to complete the square twice. Once for the x terms and one for the y terms. Right? So let's take a look at what that looks like. And then it's easy to identify the center and the radius. Now this should be, I'm not sure which ones are in your notes, at least a couple of them are. And hopefully at least once the steps are written in your notes. If they're not, then write them in your notes at least once. And those are those color-coded steps on the right-hand side. And I am going to try to color code my work so you can match it to the steps. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do with this equation is move the constant term. Often that's not very helpful anyway, so we'll just always as habit move the constant term. So we have x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 10y equals 0. If they're not already together, we're going to put the x terms together and the y terms together. We don't want to mix the variables. Now that step, that's not applicable because the x terms are already together and the y terms are already together. All right, so now we're going to make this a perfect trinomial, and to do this we're going to add b divided by 2 squared for the x part and for the y part. Now for the x part, b is 6. It's the coefficient on x. For the y part, b is 10. It's the coefficient on y. Right, so we have x squared minus 6x plus, oh excuse me, I said b was 6. b is technically negative 6. It won't make a difference when we square it, but we should write that down correctly. Right, so x squared minus 6x plus negative 6 divided by 2 squared. Right, so we're always going to add b divided by 2 squared, and we're going to do it for each of the variables. Plus y squared plus 10y plus, now b is 10, so it would be 10 divided by 2 squared equals, now if we do it to one side, we have to do it to the other side. And whoops, somehow, let me just fix that. Somehow, when I wrote down the equation after moving the constant term, somehow I lost the minus 25. Let's just fix that. So now we have a minus 25 on this side already, and so I'm kind of running out of space here, so I'm just going to write it kind of going downhill here. We have the minus 25 that was already there, right? And then we added negative 6 divided by 2 squared and 10 divided by 2 squared. So we have to add it to the other side. You can add anything you want to an equation so long as you add it to both sides. Now let's simplify that. So we have x squared. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. That should be in red if I want to actually match my steps there. All right, so x squared minus 6x. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and negative 3 squared is 9. Plus y squared plus 10y plus 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 5 squared is 25. Equals, and then we have a negative 25, and then we added the 9 and the 25 to both sides. So let's add it over here, right? What we added on the left-hand side, we need to make sure we have on the right-hand side. And the 9 is just the negative 6 divided by 2 squared and the 10 divided by 2 squared. All right, so let's continue to simplify that. All right, so we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y squared plus 10y plus 25 equals. All right, so negative 25 plus 9 plus 25 is just 9. All right, so now we're going to factor, and there's two ways you can think about it. You can either think of it b divided by 2, or you can think about it as the square root of c. I'll write them both in here just to make sure you're okay with that. So this part here, if we do b divided by 2, b is the negative 6, would be x, and that's a minus, would be x minus 6 divided by 2 times x minus 6 divided by 2. Or if you want to think of it as square root, so this is an or, then you can write it as x minus the square root of 9, x minus the square root of 9. Right? So that would be the factoring for the x parts. And then plus, if you want to do b divided by 2, this would be y. That's a plus there. It's plus 10y, so it would be y plus 10 divided by 2, y plus 10 divided by 2. If you want to think of it as the square root, then it would be y plus the square root of 25, y plus the square root of 25. But either way, right, there's going to be the same values, because 6 divided by 2 or square root of 9, either way is 3. And there's 2 of them, so we could rewrite this as x minus 3 squared. Right, so this right here is an optional step. All right, you can go, once you get comfortable, you can go right from the x squared minus 6x plus 9 to the x minus 3 squared. All right, so whether we do y plus 10 divided by 2 or square root of 25, either way, that's y plus 5. And there's 2 of them, so it's y plus 5 squared. And then on the other side, we lost the 9. I sometimes, for some reason, don't want to write the constant in there. We need to write that. Otherwise, we just have nothing. We have a point. Equals 9. So now that we have it simplified, we can actually identify the center and the radius. So the center of this circle, right? So remember that it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. So this is x minus 3 squared. So that 3 is the h. But now we'd have to simplify this so that 5 is really negative 5, because there's really a negative sign there. So the center is 3, negative 5, just like when we were working before. And then the radius is the square root of 9 or 3. All right, so finding the radius and the center are just the same thing as we did before. The only difference is now we're using completing the square to change the format from general form, where we can't find the radius and center, to standard form, where we can. Right? And so this one is done. And the others might go a little faster. When you're doing them, they'll go faster because you won't be talking and you won't do it 2 different ways. All right, so now let's try this one. All right, so step 1 is move the constant, but the constant's already moved. Right? The 2 is already all by itself, so we're done with that one. Step number 2 is to put the x terms together and the y terms. So just remember to keep the sign, right, but just change the order. So this should be x squared minus 2x, and then plus y squared minus 6y equals 2. All right, so now we want to add b divided by 2 squared to the x part and b divided by 2 squared to the y part. So we have x squared minus 2x plus negative 2 divided by 2. That would be, because b is negative 2. All right, so we take negative 2 divided by 2 squared, and then y squared, whoops, I don't know why that's saying that, because I plugged this, I put the cord back in. I guess I didn't make sure that it was in right. There we go. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's charging now. Y squared minus 6y plus negative 6 divided by 2 squared. And then we have to add it to the other side. I keep running out of space on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side. So we had a 2 already. And then we added negative 2 divided by 2 squared and added negative 6 divided by 2 squared. Whoops. Well, that's just lost in the 3 there. Okay, there we go. All right, so we want to simplify. So this would be x squared minus 2x. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Plus y squared minus 6y. And negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. And then equals 2. And then that would be negative 2 divided by 2 squared, that's the 1. Negative 6 divided by 2 squared, that's the 9. Right, so now we can simplify that further. We have x squared minus 2x plus 1 plus y squared minus 6y plus 9 equals 12. Right, so now we want to factor. Sorry, we're in the factoring stage. All right, so we're going to factor the x and we'll factor the y's. All right, so if you want to think of it as b divided by 2, this would be x minus, and the b is negative 2. It would be x minus, so 2 divided by 2, because there's a negative there, that stays negative, so it's a negative 2, so there's a minus. So 2 divided by 2 times x minus 2 divided by 2. If you like square root, then it would be x minus the square root of 1, x minus the square root of 1. Either way, 2 divided by 2 or square root of 1, that's x minus 1. And since there's 2 of them, squared. For the y's, we would have y minus 6 divided by 2, because b is negative 6. And y minus 6 divided by 2, or if you like using square root, then it would be y minus the square root of 3, y minus the square root of 3. Since there's 2 of them, we can write it as y, not y minus the square root of 3, y minus the square root of 9, I'm sorry. I'm already thinking of the answer, which is 3. So that would be y minus 3, because the square root of 9, or 6 divided by 2, is 3. And since there's 2 of them, we can write it as y minus 3 squared. And then we have equals. Oh, we keep losing my equals. 12. Just kept losing the 12. Equals 12. Don't lose the other side. All right, so let's write down the center and the radius. All right, so the center, the minuses go with the equation. The center is 1, 3. And then the radius is the square root of 12, which we could simplify. Right? So 12 is 4 times 3, and 4 is 2 times 2. 3 is a prime number. So 1, 2 comes out, 1, 2 goes away, and then the 3 stays in the radical. So 2 square roots of 3 is the radius here. All right. So let's try another one. I think there's like 6 of them. They're all kind of the same steps. All right, so here we want to write the equation and find the center and radius of x squared plus y squared minus 10x plus 8y minus 8 equals 0. All right, so we're going to move the constant term. There's one constant term there, so we'll add 8 to both sides. I'm going to try to write smaller, so maybe this time I won't have to, pile up my constant terms. X squared plus y squared minus 10x plus 8y equals 8. And then we'll put the x terms together and the y terms together. So that's x squared and negative 10x go together. And then y squared and 8y go together. And then we want to add b divided by 2 squared to each part, to the x part, to the y part. All right, so for the x part, b is negative 10. So that would be x minus 10x plus negative 10 divided by 2 squared. And then we have y squared plus 8y. Here for the y's, b is 8. So that would be, we want to add plus 8 divided by 2 squared. And then we already have an 8 over here. And then we're going to add a negative 10 divided by 2 squared and an 8 divided by 2 squared. Well, that's a little closer for me fitting everything in. If I just move this over, I think that'll fit. Let's see, will that move? Oh, it's probably frozen. I mean, not frozen, locked. So I don't have to keep worrying about erasing that. Here, we'll just do that. All right, so now let's simplify. All right, we're going to simplify that negative 10 divided by 2. That'd be x. Oops, we lost a square. Just a little square got lost. X squared minus 10x plus negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Plus y squared plus 8y. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Equals 8 plus 25 plus 16. All right, so let's add those together. So we have x squared minus 10x plus 25 plus y squared plus 8y plus 16 equals. So 25 plus 8 would be 33. 33 plus 16 would be 49. All right, so now we'll factor. And there's 2 ways you can think of it. Either b divided x plus or minus b divided by 2, or x plus or minus square root of c squared. All right, so if we do b divided by 2, this would be x minus 10, because b is negative 10. X minus 10 divided by 2 times x minus 10 divided by 2. If you prefer thinking of it as square root of c, then that would be x minus the square root of 25, x minus the square root of 25. For the y's, that would be, so b here is 8, so that would be y plus 8 divided by 2 times y plus 8 divided by 2. If you prefer square root of c, then that would be plus y plus the square root of 16, y plus the square root of 16, and both of these equals 49 either way. All right, so now we want to factor it. So whether we think of it as 10 divided by 2 or the square root of 25, this is x minus 5, and there's 2 of them, so it's x minus 5 squared. Whether we think of it as 8 divided by 2 or the square root of 16, that's going to be y plus 4. And since there's 2 of them squared, equals 49. So now we can find the center. So the center of the circle, actually let me rewrite that, just so you can remember that. So this is, I'll rewrite it in a different color. I'll rewrite it in blue. So this would be x minus 5 squared, right? But remember the plus 4, that's y minus a negative 4 squared, because the negative goes with it. Right? So the center equals 5 negative 4, and then the radius is the square root of 49, which is 7. So there we go. We found the center and the radius. Right? And that's all there is to it. All right, let's do another one. So it's the same set of steps. I mean, just sometimes you don't have to do one of the steps because maybe the constant terms are already moved or the x's and y's are together. All right, so here we go. There's the next one. So we want to write this in standard form. So first we're going to move the constant term, and there's just a 1 there. So plus 1. So that gives us x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 4y equals 1. Right, now we want to put the x terms together and the y terms together. So that's x squared plus 4x plus y squared minus 4y equals 1. Now we want to add b divided by 2 squared to both sides. So for the x terms, b is positive 4. So that would be x squared plus 4x plus 4 divided by 2 squared. For the y terms, b is negative 4. So that would be y squared minus 4y plus negative 2 divided by 2 squared equals 1. And then we added in, oops, not negative 2 divided by 2. I keep thinking of what it's going to be after I divide by 2. Negative 4 divided by 2, excuse me, because b is negative 4. All right, so we already have a 1 here, and then we added 4 divided by 2 squared, and I'll squeeze it in this way, negative 4 divided by 2 squared. All right, so we'll simplify now. So that's going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. We have y squared minus 4y. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is still 4. And then, so that's equals 1 plus 4 plus 4. All right, so now we can factor. All right, so whether you can think of it as b divided by 2, and then that would be x, and that's b's positive, so it's going to be x plus, and b is 4. So that would be x plus 4 divided by 2, x plus 4 divided by 2. If you prefer to think of it as the square root of c, then that would be x plus the square root of 4, x plus the square root of 4. Okay, and then for the y terms, if you like to divide b, which is negative 4 by 2, then that would be y, that's a negative there, so y minus y minus 4 divided by 2, y minus 4 divided by 2. Oh, I didn't simplify the numbers. I usually add them together first, and I didn't bother to do that. Let me just do that in the next step. I'll move this step down. So the only thing I didn't do, and I didn't really notice it until I was about to write in the constant on the other side, is that we didn't add the 1 and the 4 together. So that's x squared plus 4x plus 4 plus y squared minus 4y plus 4 equals 9. All right, so we've got the first part of that factored. Let's finish factoring the y's. So if you don't like b divided by 2, then you can think of it as, oh, this is equals 9. Then you can think of it as y minus the square root of c. So that would be y minus square root of 4. Y minus the square root of 4 equals 9. Either way, 4 divided by 2 or square root of 4, this is x plus 2. And there's 2 of them, so it's x plus 2 squared. Negative 4 divided by 2 or minus the square root of 4. Either way, that's minus 2. So that's going to be y minus 2, and there's 2 of them, so that's y minus 2 squared equals 9. Right? And remember that the negative goes with the equation, so that plus 2 is really x minus a negative 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9. The center equals negative 2, 2, and the radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. And there we go, another one done. All right, so it's the same steps over and over again. I think maybe there's just one more left. A challenge one. And got 2 more left. 1 and a little challenge 2. Let's call this video good here, and then on the next video I'll finish up the last 2 problems. All right, thanks for watching. Bye for now.